My name is Sydney. I am 11 years old, and last summer my mom went to Europe for a month and left me with a single wrinkled $20 bill in my hand. You're independent now, she said with a bright smile, pulling her suitcase toward the door. You're not a baby anymore. Just order food if you need to. Independent was her word, not mine. I stared at the bill in my palm. $20. No plan, no babysitter, not even a proper goodbye. Just a quick kiss on my forehead, the sound of her suitcase rolling away, and the front door closing behind her. I'll be fine, I said out loud to the empty hallway, like saying it might make it true. My hands were shaking. There was no one else in the house, no one to cook, no one who even knew I had been left alone. I tried to tell myself this was a challenge I could handle. Day one, I decided I would prove I could manage. I lined up the few cans in the pantry, checked a fridge that was already half empty, and pushed my fear aside. If my mom thought I was independent, then she should see what that really meant. Because as the month moved on, the $20 would disappear, the food would run out, and the silence in the house would turn into something heavier than loneliness. And when they finally came back, what my mom saw inside our home made her whisper, "No, no, this can't be happening." Do you want to know how being left with $20 at 11 became the decision that made my mom regret everything she had done to me? Stay until the end, and you'll see how I made sure she would never forget it. The first problem showed up about 10 minutes after the taxi drove away. My mom had tossed an emergency credit card onto the counter as if that solved everything. There was one problem. It wasn't activated, and I didn't know the PIN. I learned that the hard way, standing in the doorway with my phone, trying to order food while every app rejected the card. So it was just me, a useless card, and $20. On day one, I treated it like a game. I sliced bread as thin as possible, spread peanut butter so lightly it barely covered the surface, and told myself that real survivors made things last. I even joked to myself that this might be a good story someday. By day three, it wasn't funny anymore. The pantry looked like the before picture in a hunger ad. A couple of cans I didn't know how to open without hurting myself, a cereal box with more air than food, and a jar of pickles I hated. My stomach growled loud enough to embarrass me, even though no one else was there. I tried to distract myself. I turned on the TV just to fill the room with noise so I didn't have to hear the house creak. I opened my mom's laptop and stared at her work emails, stacked like they mattered more than anything else. At one point, I grabbed my notebook and wrote a heading in big letters, evidence. Under it, I wrote, left alone at 11, $20. No food plan, no check-ins. I didn't know what I would do with it, but writing it down changed something in me. If they thought I was old enough to be alone, then I was old enough to remember everything, to record it, to show someone someday how they chose a vacation over me. I opened a video app on my phone. Day three, I said quietly to the camera. My face looked smaller than I expected. I'm still alone. The car doesn't work. I ate the last in the fridge yesterday. I paused and swallowed. If you're seeing this, it means someone finally asked what happened to me. I saved the video and locked my phone, my heart racing. Part of me hoped no one would ever see it. Another part of me wanted it to hit my mom the moment she came home. I thought about my best friend, Emma, and hovered over her name. If I texted her, I would have to admit my mom left me, that I was hungry, that I wasn't okay. Instead, I sent a normal message. How was your trip? There was no reply. Maybe she was by a lake with her family, eating burgers and not checking her phone. My stomach tightened. By day 5, hunger felt like fog in my head. I got dizzy when I stood up too fast. I found a half-empty cereal box in the back of the cupboard and ate it dry from the bag, trying to make each handful last. I opened my notebook again and added another line. Day 5. Still no call from Mom. Not even a text. Then I added one more. If I disappear, this proves it wasn't my fault. That was when my thinking shifted. This wasn't just about getting through until she came back. It was about what would happen to her when people realized what she had done. On day 7, my body felt weak, but my anger was stronger. I went to the front window and looked out at the street. Kids rode bikes. A dog barked at a delivery truck. A couple walked by holding coffee. Normal lives. Normal parents. I looked at our empty driveway and whispered, You chose Europe over me. Do you know what that's going to cost you when someone finds out? Then the doorbell rang. I froze, cereal crumbs still on my fingers. No one ever rang our doorbell. Neighbor kids knocked, packages were dropped off. The bell rang again, followed by 3 sharp knocks. My heart pounded as I walked to the door. For a moment, I thought about pretending I wasn't home. If it was a salesperson, they would leave. But another thought cut through my fear. What if this was it? What if this was the moment someone finally saw me? My hand shook as I reached for the handle. If you were 11, hungry, and completely alone, would you open the door or keep pretending everything was fine? I opened it just enough to see who was there. On the porch stood a man in a green jacket with my school's emblem stitched on the chest. It took a second to recognize him without a classroom behind him. Hi, Sydney, he said gently. It was Mr. Hughes, the school counselor. I've been trying to reach your parents. They didn't answer. Can I come in for a moment? My first instinct was to lie, to say everything was fine, that my parents were just out, that I didn't need anything. Instead, my grip on the door loosened, and I stepped back. Sure, I said quietly. He came inside and looked around. The silence felt heavier. The dishes in the sink, the empty counters, the nearly bare fruit bowl all turned into evidence I hadn't meant to show. Are your parents at work? He asked, clearly expecting someone else to appear. They're in Europe, I said, surprised by how flat my voice sounded. For a month? He repeated, his eyebrows lifting. And who's staying with you? I swallowed. This was the moment. I could protect them or tell the truth. Just me, I said. They said I was old enough. Something changed in his expression. The polite concern sharpened into something serious. He pulled out a chair and sat down, motioning for me to sit across from him. Sydney, how long have you been alone? Almost a week, I whispered. Do you have enough food? Money? I let out a small, bitter laugh. They left me a credit card that doesn't work and $20. He looked at me for a long time, not the way teachers do when you forget homework, but like he was weighing how wrong this was. This isn't okay, he said finally. You know that, right? I shrugged, my chest aching. They said they needed a break, that I'm mature, that I should be able to handle it. And how have you been handling it? I wanted to say fine, to keep pretending. Then I saw my notebook on the table. The word evidence stared back at me. I've been hungry, I said, and scared, and I've been writing things down, just in case. Just in case what? He asked. Just in case something happens to me, I said quietly, so no one can say they didn't know. The room went silent. This time, he didn't ignore it. He felt it. He leaned forward. Sydney, leaving an 11-year-old alone for a week, for a month, with almost no food and no supervision isn't just irresponsible. It's dangerous. It's neglect. There are laws about this. My heart pounded in my ears. Neglect. Laws. The word sounded like something from a TV show, not something meant for my kitchen. What happens if someone finds out? I asked, my voice suddenly smaller. He answered carefully. Agencies get involved. Child Protective Services. There could be an investigation. Your parents could face serious consequences. There it was. The thing I had not said out loud, the thought that had turned my anger into something sharper. Consequences, I repeated slowly, for what they did to me. He did not rush to calm me or say I was overreacting. He simply nodded. For what they did to you. My thoughts raced. I pictured my mom coming home to strangers in our living room, people asking questions she could not brush away with a smile or a joke about independence. I imagined her seeing my notebook, my videos, my empty pantry. Do you want help, Sydney? Mr. Hughes asked quietly. Real help, not just groceries. The kind that makes sure this never happens again. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, to shut everything down and wait for my parents to return, pretending the month never existed. But the part of me that kept writing the word evidence was exhausted. Yes, I said. But if I say yes, what does that mean for them? It means they will have to answer for their choices, he said. It means adults will finally see what you've been living through. I looked at my hands, then back at him. Then help me, I said. I want them to see exactly what they did. I want them to feel what it's like to lose control. He nodded once. First, we make sure you're safe. Then we make sure the right people hear your story. As he reached for his phone, a strange calm settled in. The fear was still there, but beneath it was something steady. I was not just a kid waiting to be rescued anymore. I was the witness. If you were in my place, would you keep protecting your parents, or would you finally let the truth do the work they never expected? Mr. Hughes stepped into the hallway to make a call, leaving me at the table with my notebook open. I caught pieces of his low, controlled voice, but the words that reached me made my pulse jump. Alone. 11. No guardian. No food in the house. I traced the ink on the page with my finger. Evidence. It no longer felt like a private diary. It felt like a case file. A few minutes later, he returned. I called your neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, he said, and I spoke with someone from the Child Protection Hotline. They're sending someone to check on you, but first, we need to get you something to eat. My face burned at the idea of people checking on me like I was broken. But I also felt something else, a quiet satisfaction. If they were checking on me, they were also checking on my parents. Is Mrs. Johnson mad? I asked. He shook his head. No, she's worried. That's what good neighbors do. A softer knock came at the door. Mrs. Johnson stepped inside, her eyes taking in everything, the notebook, the empty cereal box, my pale face. Oh, Sydney, she said softly. Why didn't you come to me sooner? Because I didn't want to look weak, I blurted out. They always say I'm mature, that I can handle things. I thought asking for help meant I was proving them right. Her expression eased. Asking for help isn't weakness, she said. It's survival, and sometimes it's the only way to make adults face their choices. That line stayed with me. Make adults face what they do. We sat down together, and for the first time I didn't feel talked over. They asked me to explain everything, and I did. The suitcase rolling out the door, the $20, the credit card that didn't work, the way my mom laughed when I asked who would stay with me. You'll be fine. You're my little adult, she had said, like it was praise. As I spoke, Mrs. Johnson's jaw tightened. Mr. Hughes wrote notes on a pad. Can we show them this? I asked, pointing to my notebook. When the hotline people come? Yes, he said. And I want you to keep writing. What you felt, what you ate, when you tried to call them, everything you remember. So they can't twist it later, I said. So they can't say I'm exaggerating. Exactly, he replied. You're allowed to protect yourself with the truth. The words settled heavily. Protect myself with the truth. It sounded close to revenge, and I realized I didn't reject that idea. When the caseworker arrived, she introduced herself and asked to look around. I watched her notice the nearly empty fridge, the trash with only a few wrappers, the unused emergency credit card on the counter. She didn't need to comment. Her face said enough. How long have your parents been gone? She asked gently. 7 days, I said. They planned a month. And who checks on you? No one. Until today. Do they call? Not since the airport, I said. She sent a selfie from Paris with a heart emoji. That was it. The caseworker nodded and turned to Mr. Hughes and Mrs. Johnson. Thank you for contacting us. While they talked, I quietly set my phone on the counter and opened the video app again. I recorded the empty fridge, the bare table, the caseworker's bag on a chair. This is what our house looked like when they finally noticed I was alone, I said. This is what my mom will come back to. I saved the video and slipped my phone away. I wasn't just getting through this anymore. I was documenting it. The caseworker returned to me. For now, you won't be alone, she said. We're arranging for you to stay with Mrs. Johnson while we speak to your parents and decide next steps. Mrs. Johnson smiled and squeezed my shoulder. Is that okay with you, Sydney? The caseworker asked. I thought about the empty house, the quiet nights, my mom's last message about croissants instead of me. Then I thought about what it would mean for them to come home to an official report instead of excuses. Yes, I said. I want to stay somewhere I'm not invisible. That night, as I packed a small bag and my notebook, I looked around my room one last time. The posters, the stuffed animal, the window facing the street. This is the place you left, I whispered, imagining my mom hearing it later. But it's not the place you'll find when you come back. If you were me, would you forgive and forget, or would you let every empty shelf and missed call become proof that changes everything? Walking next door should have felt simple, just a few steps across the grass. But carrying my bag and notebook into Mrs. Johnson's house felt like crossing a line I couldn't reverse. I wasn't just the kid caught in the middle anymore. I was the kid someone chose to protect. Her house smelled like laundry soap and vanilla. The table was set. The fridge was full of real food. My stomach growled before I could stop it. "We'll fix that first," she said, kindly ignoring my embarrassment. "Let's cook together." We returned to my kitchen with reusable bags. This time, she let me choose pasta, sauce, vegetables, bread, fruit, food that lasted, food that made the kitchen look lived in. "Keep the receipts," Mr. Hughes said quietly. "They show what wasn't here before today." We placed them in my notebook behind the pages about my hunger. Evidence. Layer by layer, as we cooked, the sounds of boiling water and garlic filled the room, wrapping around me like something I hadn't realized I was missing. "Have you ever made spaghetti like this?" Mrs. Johnson asked. "Not really," I said. "My mom mostly microwaves things or orders takeout." "Then today you learn," she said. "You learn how to feed yourself properly. No one can take that from you." I stirred the sauce, watching it turn slowly, feeling like the anger and hurt inside me were finally moving, becoming something useful. While the pasta cooked, the caseworker returned with more questions. My mom's messages, her flight time, the last call. I showed her the selfie with the Eiffel Tower and the caption, "Finally free for a month." "Free from what?" she asked. I looked at the screen. "From me, I guess." She wrote something down. I didn't ask what. "Do you want to say anything directly to your parents?" she asked. "We sometimes include statements from children." My throat tightened, then I felt my notebook against my arm. "Yes," I said. "I want them to know exactly what this felt like." We sat at the table and I began to write while the spaghetti cooked. "You said I was mature enough to be alone," I wrote. "But being mature doesn't mean I don't need food. It doesn't mean I don't get scared. You told everyone how hard you work, but you didn't notice when your own child was counting crumbs." I paused, took a breath, and kept writing. "By the time you read this, other adults will already have seen what you did. They will have seen the empty fridge, the unusable credit card, and the notebook where I had to document my own neglect. If there are consequences, they are not because I betrayed you. They exist because you left me." When I finished, I slid the paper across the table to the caseworker. "Can you make sure they see this?" I asked. "I can," she said, "and I will." Later that evening, I sat at Mrs. Johnson's table, slowly twirling spaghetti around my fork. The first bite nearly made me cry. It was warm, real, and tasted like something I hadn't felt in a long time. Safety. This is what normal is supposed to feel like, I thought. Not sitting alone on the floor, eating dry cereal from a box. Mr. Hughes stayed for dinner, and we talked about school, books, and even small things like the worst cafeteria lunches we could remember. For about an hour, I almost forgot that my life was unraveling in the house next door. But once the plates were cleared and the adults began speaking quietly in the living room, fragments of their conversation reached me. Temporary placement, investigation, possible removal of custody. I didn't understand every legal term, but I understood what they meant. My parents had treated my absence as a break from responsibility. Now there was a real chance they could lose the right to call themselves my guardians. That night, in the guest room where I would sleep, I set my phone up again and pressed record. "Day 7, I said quietly. "But it's different now. I'm not in my house. I'm somewhere safe. People know. They saw the truth." I looked directly at my reflection. "If you're my mom watching this, remember something. You always said actions have consequences, that if I messed up, I'd have to face them. This time, it's your turn. This isn't just my story. It's your choice, written in real time." I stopped recording and lay back, staring at the ceiling. My heart wasn't light. It hurt. I still missed the idea of parents who would have stayed. But I knew something else now, too. I wasn't powerless. Maybe one act of care really could change everything. Or maybe it would just give me the strength to walk away when the time came. The days at Mrs. Johnson's house felt unreal at first, like I had stepped into someone else's family by accident. I woke up to the smell of breakfast instead of hunger. Someone always asked how I slept instead of assuming I was fine. For the first time in a long while, I didn't have to prove I was independent just to be tolerated. Even so, there was a countdown ticking in the background. Everyone knew it. At some point, my parents would return. At some point, they would have to face what they left behind. On the second night, my phone buzzed while I was doing homework at the kitchen table. My mom's work number lit up the screen. I stared until it almost dimmed. "Aren't you going to answer?" Mrs. Johnson asked gently. My hands shook. What if she's just calling to yell at me for ruining her trip? Then you'll know exactly where you stand, she said calmly. But you don't have to talk to her alone. I answered and put the phone on speaker. Sydney? My mom snapped, sharp and irritated, not worried. What's going on? Why is Child Services emailing me about an investigation? Why is your school involved? Do you have any idea what this looks like for me? There it was. No. Are you okay? No. Are you safe? They're involved because you left me, I said. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. You went to Europe for a month. You left me alone with $20 and a credit card that didn't work. They saw the house, they saw the fridge, they saw everything. You're exaggerating, she shot back. There was plenty of food. You've always been dramatic. You're 11, not a baby. I can't believe you'd turn people against us like this. Do you know what this does to our reputation? Across the table, Mrs. Johnson leaned forward. This is Mrs. Johnson, she said clearly. I'm the neighbor. I'm also the one who bought your daughter groceries because there was almost nothing left. This isn't about reputation. It's about safety. There was a sharp breath on the other end. Why are you interfering? This is a family matter. Sydney is fine. I looked at my notebook, open to the line that read no call for 7 days. No, I said quietly. I wasn't fine. And I'm not fine with what you did. There was a pause, just long enough for hope to surface. Then her voice returned, tight and controlled. We'll talk about this when we get back, and we're going to have a serious conversation about consequences, young lady. The call ended. Mrs. Johnson silenced the phone before it could ring again. She's right about one thing, she said softly. There will be consequences, just not only for you. The next day, the caseworker pulled me out of class. We sat in a small office that smelled like markers and old coffee while she scrolled through her tablet. Your parents moved their flight up, she said. They'll be home in 3 days instead of 3 weeks. My chest tightened. Part of me felt relieved. Another part understood why. They weren't coming back for me. They were coming back to protect themselves. What happens when they get here? I asked. We'll meet them at the house, she said. I'll be there with a supervisor. Mr. Hughes will attend as the school representative. We want you involved if you feel safe. I thought about hiding next door, letting the adults handle it, slipping back into being unseen. No, I said. I want to be there. I want them to see me. I want them to see what they came home to. She nodded. Then we'll make sure you have a voice. Over the next 2 days, we prepared without calling it that. No rehearsed speeches, just organized facts. My written statement, selected notebook entries, grocery receipts, screenshots of my mom's Europe posts, call logs showing no check-ins. This isn't about punishment, the caseworker reminded me. It's about your safety. What happens comes from their choices, not from you. I understood. Still, the memory of eating dry cereal in the dark told me something else. It felt like justice, like holding up a mirror. On the morning they returned, we went back into my house. The air was stale, the silence heavy. I forced myself to walk through each room. The caseworker placed a thick folder on the table. My notebook lay open to the page labeled evidence. My phone rested beside it, paused on the video where I said, Day 3. I'm still alone. My own tired face stared back at me. Are you sure you want this playing? She asked. Yes, I said. She always said stories don't matter without proof. This is mine. Mrs. Johnson stood nearby, calm and steady. Mr. Hughes watched quietly, his badge visible. The supervisor reviewed the file one last time. We heard the car pull in. Doors closed. Laughter carried in. My legs felt weak. The caseworker stepped closer. You don't have to protect them anymore, she said. If they try to make you feel guilty, look at us. You're not alone. I nodded as the lock turned. The door opened. My mom walked in first, suitcase rolling behind her, dressed like she'd just stepped off a runway. My dad followed, mid-conversation, carefree. They stopped when they saw us. The laughter vanished from my dad's face. My mom's smile froze halfway. Her eyes moved from the unfamiliar woman at the table to Mr. Hughes by the counter, then to Mrs. Johnson near the door, and finally to me standing beside my open notebook and the glowing phone. What is this? She demanded, letting go of her suitcase. What are all of you doing in my kitchen? The supervisor stood calmly. Mrs. Carter. Mr. Carter. My name is Miss Lopez with Child Protective Services. Please have a seat. We need to discuss the situation involving your daughter, Sydney. My mom did not sit. She stared straight at me. Sydney, what did you tell them? For a moment, the old reflex returned. The urge to shrink, to apologize, to soften the truth so she would not be angry. Then I saw the paused video on my phone, that smaller, exhausted version of me from day 3. I lifted my chin. I told them what happened, I said. I told them the truth. My dad stepped in, forcing a light tone. There's clearly been a misunderstanding. We left her food, money, and a credit card. She's a very mature 11-year-old. She knows how to take care of herself. Kids today are more capable than people think. The supervisor placed a document on the table and turned it toward them. This is the activation record for the credit card. It was never set up with a PIN and was declined multiple times when Sydney attempted to use it. She placed another page beside it. These photos were taken of your refrigerator and pantry 1 week into your trip. The food supply was insufficient for an unsupervised minor, and several items were expired. My mom finally sat, more stunned than cooperative. Expired food doesn't mean she was starving, she snapped. We'd only been gone a week. We checked in. The supervisor slid another paper forward. These are your call and message logs. 1 photo from the airport and 1 selfie from Paris. No calls, no direct check-ins, no confirmation of her safety. My dad's face drained of color as he looked at the pages, then at me. We told you to order food, Sydney. We trusted you. You trusted me to survive, I said quietly. You didn't trust yourselves to parent. Mrs. Johnson stepped forward. She was dizzy from hunger when we found her. Dad, she said. She didn't come to me because she didn't want to disappoint you by needing help. Do you understand what that teaches a child? My mom's eyes narrowed. This is being blown out of proportion. Maybe she exaggerated in her notes. She likes to write. The supervisor looked at me, then at my phone. Sydney, are you comfortable showing them what you recorded? My hands shook slightly as I pressed play. The room filled with my younger voice. Day 3. I'm still alone. The card doesn't work. I ate the last decent thing in the fridge yesterday. The video moved across the nearly empty shelves, the single cereal box, the quiet kitchen. My mom covered her mouth. My dad's shoulders dropped. No, my mom whispered, stepping back. No, this can't be happening. But it was, and this time she could not laugh it away. The supervisor folded her hands. Based on our investigation, school reports, neighbor testimony, and Sydney's documentation, we have determined this meets the legal definition of neglect. Effective immediately, an emergency order will be issued. Sydney will not return to unsupervised care until a full hearing takes place. My mom shook her head. You can't take my child over a misunderstanding. We just needed a break. Do you know how hard we work? I stepped forward. I know, I said. You tell everyone how hard you work. But when I was alone, hungry, and scared, you didn't tell anyone about that. You didn't tell anyone where I was. Her eyes filled. Sydney, you don't understand. Adults need time away. We thought you'd be fine. We didn't mean to hurt you. Her words echoed memories of every time she corrected me. Actions have consequences. You always told me that, I said evenly. That choices matter. This is what your choice looks like. The room went silent. My mom looked unsteady. My dad gripped a chair. The supervisor continued. You may participate in parenting classes, evaluations, and supervised visits if approved by the court. This is not permanent punishment. It is about Sydney's safety. My mom turned to me, crying. Please tell them you want to come home. We can fix this. Part of me wanted to. But the part that spent nights recording proof knew that returning without change meant none of it mattered. I want to be safe, I said. I want to be somewhere I'm seen. Right now, that isn't with you. The supervisor placed a form on the table. Sydney will remain in temporary placement with Mrs. Johnson during the investigation. You are not to contact her directly. You're taking her side, my mom whispered. No, I said. They're finally taking mine. We left before my parents did. As I crossed the grass back to Mrs. Johnson's house, I felt heavy and lighter at the same time. I hadn't destroyed my family. They had made their choice long before. I had only stopped hiding it. Weeks later at the hearing, I sat in a room that smelled like paper and old carpet while lawyers discussed risk and protection. My parents looked smaller as my videos and notebook were entered into record. My voice stayed steady when I spoke. The judge ordered supervised visits and mandatory counseling. Custody remained restricted. It wasn't dramatic, just real. They lost the assumption that they were automatically right. That summer, I learned more than cooking. I learned that asking for help is not weakness and that telling the truth can be powerful. Not shouting, not destruction, just refusing to let neglect stay invisible. My mom still sends messages about change and regret. Maybe one day there will be a new version of normal. Maybe not. But when she came home expecting stories and souvenirs, she found something else instead. Proof. Adults who listened. A truth she couldn't talk over. And when she whispered, "This can't be happening," I understood something clearly. It already had. From the moment she chose a plane ticket over me. So if you were 11, left alone with $20 while your parents chased freedom, would you protect their image, or would you let the truth speak for itself?